Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do.
And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome to the Tricky Talks podcast. Coming up on the show this week, we look back at England's first full international at the City Ground for 84 years. We go through the latest transfer stories and rumours, and we look forward to fixture release day. Here with me to discuss all of that and more is Chels. How are you?
Hello, I'm not too bad, Simon. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And Mollo is here with us too. How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic, thank you.
Cool. Right, we've got lots to get through, so let's get cracking. Obviously, we're going to start off with that England game as the City Ground hosted, as I said, for the first time in 84 years, only to suffer a 3-1 defeat to Senegal. We'll come on to Morgan Gibbs-White in a moment, of course, but Mollo, you were there. Tell us about the occasion and how did it compare to watching a Forest game?
Well, first of all, I sort of broke it down into three bits. The pre-match, which was superb, well organised. I met up with lots of England Travel Club guys before the game in Trent Nav, because obviously it's a nice big space. Fantastic. It had a real carnival feel because Senegal fans are very, very lively. They were brilliant, although really tall. I know I'm not the tallest, but everywhere I went, I felt like everybody's really tall in Senegal colours. They were brilliant, really lively. There was pre-match build-up was brilliant. Then, I sat in a family stand with my youngest for his first ever England game, which the family stand was the opposite to what it is for Forest. So we're at Brian Clough Upper in what I thought were going to be posh seats with a great view. And I have to say, the highlight for me of the whole day really was the Viv Anderson thing. Forza Garibaldi, absolutely. They do some great stuff, but that excelled themselves. I was a lump in the throat. I was saying to my wife, I was like, look, that's... And I was like, I'm going to take a breath here because it was amazing. From the streets of Clifton to the grass of Wembley. We all love Viv anyway, and he was a pioneer, but I've been lucky enough to meet him a couple of times. He's a really humble, tremendous chap. So pre-match was amazing. First 5-10 minutes, very good. Not a bad atmosphere at all. And then the Tuchel factor kicked in, didn't it? You all saw the game, but I'll say what was really disappointing was the game was actually sold out. Every ticket was sold, believe it or not, but there was only 26,500, I think it was there. And the reason for that, and I know this because there were tickets flying around on the day of the game for next to nothing. There's a lot of people, a bit like the Forest Away members used to do, buying tickets to get their, what we would call loyalty points, but they're called caps, ready for next year's World Cup, so they're able to get tickets for the World Cup and the big games and whatnot, and they didn't want to miss out. And perhaps, they're going to go to all these away games and what have you. Maybe it's people from London and it's hard getting out. I don't know, although we seem to be able to get there. So that was really disappointing in that respect because it deserved to be a sellout. It was a tremendous occasion. Forest did everything right. And the game itself, I'll let you guys talk about that because you saw it. After the game, the reaction... We all heard that on different places, TV, radio and whatnot. Also, one really, really frustrating thing, and I get that there's long journeys and I get that England were pretty rubbish, but at 2-1, before we got what was almost an equalising goal, streams of people were leaving. And I don't just mean a few dozen that perhaps had to catch a train. I mean hundreds. And once the third goal went in, obviously it was an exodus. I get it. I only had a 5-minute journey home. I can't complain about that, but... Fair play to Forest, put on a great show. The City Ground in all its splendour, Forza Garibaldi, and it's just a shame. The game was terrible, and there was too many people chucking paper aeroplanes from Upper Trent End onto the pitch. Although one of them reached halfway between the goal area and the halfway line, so that was the winner.
That was yours, wasn't it, Mollo?
No, mine would have just come and hit me in the face or something, my luck.
Yeah, I mean, the game wasn't brilliant, was it, Chelsea? It didn't seem as though, from watching it on TV, I didn't get the sense that it was a Forest-type atmosphere whatsoever. It was, like Mollo said, it was a carnival-type atmosphere. And it didn't get off to a good start in my eyes in that Morgan Gibbs-White didn't start, despite being on the front cover of the programme. A lot of focus around the performance in Andorra and were changes expected, and he made 10 changes, and that still didn't include Morgan Gibbs-White in the starting lineup. what were your thoughts around that, Chelsea, and then talk about that, and then move on to his performance in general? Because actually, I thought he did pretty well when he came on.
Yeah, I really don't understand why Gibbs-White didn't start, to be fair. I don't know what more he has to do. I don't think, we have a strong England side, yes, we do. But I think it could be stronger, like starting Gibbs-White. You know, I don't think he played badly when he came on, not at all. But I don't know what, I was very surprised that Tuchel was the English manager, I'm not going to lie. I don't know whether, when I was watching the game on television, I don't know whether that was the same for you, Mollo, I don't know whether there was a lot of desire, I'm going to call it, from the England squad. I'm not sure. Have they got the respect for him yet? Will that come? I have no idea. But by not starting Gibbs-White and leaving him on the bench like he has been doing, Gibbs-White will lose respect for him as a result of it. So I don't know what more that they can do, really.
However, he did play well. I thought when he came on, he got a cameo 30 minutes or so, give or take. But the team looked as though they were much more lively when he came on. He gave them that spark despite playing on the left-hand side of midfield, which is not his natural position by any means. And, of course, he nearly scored as well. So he nearly kept his appearance with a goal. But generally, I thought he was the one that was going to drive England towards an equaliser in the second half. And unfortunately, they had a goal disallowed, and we won't even go into that because if you know, like Harry Kane said afterwards, if you know the rules, that's a goal. But overall, I thought he came out with a lot of credit. Did Morgan, didn't he?
I thought as well, let's upset Crystal Palace fans some more. Let's sign Eze, because how their link-up play was excellent. Like you said, he set up the chance for Gibbs-White, but he also flicked one inside for him, didn't he? They linked up really well, and it was almost taking off a centre forward and putting on no centre forward was a bit weird. But as a pair of number 10s, that was actually our best spell, even though, as you say, for some bizarre reason, he put him on the left. I'm very much not keen on Tuchel, but in his defence, what's clear is we've got a number of players and one particular club where friendlies don't matter. If I'm Saka, if I'm the young Skelly, and if I'm Declan Rice, I speak to the manager and say, look, give someone else a chance because I'm not going to risk getting injured. Every time I get the ball, I'm going to shuffle down the wing. And if someone comes towards me, I'm going to turn inside and pass it backwards because I don't care about this friendly. That was absolutely evident. It was almost like Arteta had put in their contract, you must not. I'm not saying they weren't trying in terms of effort levels. I mean, trying in terms of beating their man. I think Saka is probably certainly one of the best three wingers in the Premier League. I hate watching him against Forest, but I love watching him. I think he's such a talent. Saka that I watched on Tuesday night, I could have done what he did, and I'm 25 years old plus a bit. I could have stood on the wing, received the ball and passed it inside like that. And I think there's a number of players that were like that, where because it was a friendly, they just didn't care. However, if you roll it back to the match that did matter, we were terrible against Andorra, weren't we, as well? So I'm very concerned. Tuchel doesn't look like he has a plan, unless it's his plan to obliterate England's World Cup chances.
Yeah, funny you should say that. Danny was sat watching the game with me, and he's convinced Tuchel has been placed as manager by the Germans to act as a spy to wreck England's World Cup hopes. He genuinely believes that. As
a 14-year-old, you're allowed to say that.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to say it.
No.
Far be it for me to disagree with Danny. I may have uttered similar words myself every now and again.
Yeah, you mentioned about Saka and the like turning backwards and not wanting to be too offensive. Would you not say it was down to Moussa Niakhaté having them in their pocket?
There's another thing. Niakhaté, I won't use my exact words that I said at the game. When we had Niakhaté, every time he had the ball, I was nervous because he's quite clumsy. He looked like peak Paolo Maldini against us the other night. I'm like, what's going on? No wonder Leon bought him. I could not believe it was the same player. Did you see him carrying the ball out as well a couple of times? Yeah. Who is this guy? I couldn't believe it. And Nicholas Jackson, not a bad player, an average centre-forward. Again, looked like peak Paolo Rossi or something. He was amazing. And I think that reflects more on the England team. No disrespect to Niakhaté. I loved his character. Just if he wasn't made of glass, it was unreal. When did Niakhaté become peak Maldini?
It was lovely
Yeah,
to see him back
exactly.
at the City ground, though, wasn't it? Absolutely, like what he put on his Instagram and everything. It was lovely to see him back, bless him.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I don't think Morgan Gibbs-White has done his chances any harm whatsoever involved in. He's certainly going to be a permanent fixture of the squad now. Whether he gets in the team on a regular basis, the first 11, I mean, only time will tell. But I do want to move nicely and continue the talk about Gibbs-White and we're going to move on to some transfer stories and rumours now, because there's been a lot in the press around, is he going to join City? And then it became apparent, if you believe reports, that actually City have moved on and he's not going to join City. But then you have the Saudi Arabia team are interested, and Arsenal are rumoured to be interested, and now Chelsea apparently as well. So where do you stand on the Gibbs-White situation, given he's got 2 years remaining on his contract? You either, I think, sell him now to maximise your value and your return, or if he's going to stay, you have to sign him to a new contract, Chelsea, don't you?
I'm not going to lie, I am the person with any transfer rumours. I put my fingers in my ear and I say la 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 until I know for definite. And I have had my dad go, have you heard about this? I go, I don't want to hear it until it's set in stone. That is me. I am that person. I have heard little rumours, but no one can convince me that Gibbs-White wants to go himself. Absolutely not. Will it be get him for the maximum amount of money so it balanced the books? That would be the way if he did go. Personally, or see, this is where I'm stuck. I'm stuck with that he will leave to balance the books out, or whether he will stay. I literally have no idea in that aspect for Gibbs. So I'd love him to stay personally. That's my selfishness. And I think as us Forest fans and as a whole of a club, he would be a massive hole. I cannot. It'd be like tossing a coin for me. I would have no idea which way it's going to go with Gibbs-White.
It's a tricky one. You want the best players playing for your team, and he's certainly Forest's best player at the moment, one would argue. And obviously we all want him to stay, but there is that fine balance, isn't there, Mollo, between staying and complying with PSR, because ultimately there is going to be a big sale at some point in the future. That's just the way the club operate now and the model they've adopted. So where do you stand on Gibbs-White? Would you say maximise his value now while it's at its peak, while he's in his mid-20s, or would you sign him to a new deal?
I think the difference with him compared to our other signings in the last 3 years in terms of the model is we paid a lot of money for him and took a risk. If we sell him this summer, we will make a significant profit, some of which will have to go to Wolves, I believe. But for me, I think it's more a case of we will be looking to sell him if he doesn't sign a contract. I can see him signing a contract now that Man City have looked to have moved away from it. And to be fair, as much as it's disgraceful what Man City do generally, what a good player they bought for 35 million. That Cherki's a very, very good player in that role as well. And they've obviously decided, okay, we're going to save 30 to 40, maybe 50 million and buy this guy instead. But I think the thing with Gibbs-White is if he signs for another English team, they know he's a sure thing. There's no worrying about, can I settle in the country? Can I settle into the pace of the Premier League? He's a sure thing. And what worries me is even his cameo for England, you can see what a class act he actually is. Arsenal, I haven't heard that rumour, I can't lie. I heard once Man City were not in the hunt, I thought we'd be okay. Chelsea's no surprise. They're interested in everybody to upset everybody. My view is I'd like him to stay. I'd like him to sign some kind of contract extension. Perfect scenario is sign 4 or 5 years, but even if it's a year extension to give us another guaranteed year and a potential sell, why would we sell him? Because he is, as you rightly say, he's the fulcrum of everything good we do going forward. When Gibbs-White plays well, without fail, we win. I can't think of a single game in the last 3 years, really, where he's played well and we haven't won. And I've said it before, if he plays well for 15 minutes at the top of his game for that 15 minutes, we usually win. You know, he's that good, isn't he, on his day? And Mark Crossley made a great point about him as well. He comes off the pitch, whether he be sub late on or whether it's at the end, absolutely shattered. He gives everything. He's not your typical number 10 in that respect, is he? Because he's as far from a luxury player as you can get now. I think he's the real deal. You've said it. He's at the peak of his powers. If we're going to get 80, 90 million for him, then it's this summer or next summer, isn't it? Beyond that, it starts to naturally wane slightly, unless he plays even better.
Well, we all hope that's the case. I mean, if his agent's any good and he signs a new deal, they're going to negotiate a substantial release clause, aren't they, in that contract? You would have thought. So let's hope Forest can protect themselves in that sense. Talking of signings, though, if nothing has been officially announced yet, but reports in the media suggest that Forest have signed or are going to sign 3 Brazilians. And I like the flag behind you, Mollo. He's got a nice English flag and a Brazilian flag, because Forest are turning into the second Brazilian team, aren't they? So they're signing from Botafogo striker Igor Jesus, cue all the jokes about being good at on crosses, centre-back Jair Cunha, and left-back Kiwa Barno, all of which for a combined fee of €35 million or £29.5 million. Your thoughts on those signings? We're not going to sit here and pretend we know a huge amount about them. I'll be very surprised unless you're a South American football expert, whether you've seen them a lot. But we do know Jesus has started up front for Brazil and scored on his debut. So signing a Brazilian centre forward can't be a bad thing, can it, Chels?
Well, no, it won't be a bad thing. It is one of them things where we just don't know much about them, do we? It is one of them things. It's almost a bit like when Murillo came into the squad. We didn't know a huge deal about him, but the risk paid off. I mean, did you say all 3 of them for 35 million?
I think it's 40.
40 million for all 3. I mean, that is cheap. And it's just going to have to see what they got. I mean, they'll integrate brilliantly. That's always a good thing. It depends on who we keep. But it is just going to have to be just a waiting game. I mean, if they're outstanding, that's an absolute bonus.
I think of the 3, Jesus looks to be more locked in terms of forcing his way into the starting 11, with potentially the other 2 on the periphery. And they're going to be very much a case of wait and see and having to get used to English football and a new environment, I think. But Jesus has got that pedigree, it seems, to work his way. And he's probably also arguably a greater need, isn't he, in the team than the other 2, Mollo? Absolutely.
I think even with the 2 centre-forwards we've got, one of whom has been in amazing form, as we know, we needed another centre-forward. You know, I'm sure Big T will come back stronger next season with the pre-season, everything from his awful injury, but you need 3 centre-forwards. The thing about Igor Jesus is I finish work at a certain time most days, and I drive home and I listen to that awful radio station, and they've got a really good correspondent on there called Tim Vickery, who does once a week South American football. And it was about 6 weeks ago. He always talks about good upcoming players, and he was raving about Igor Jesus and talking about rumours Arsenal were going to go in for him, because we all know Arsenal are desperate for a centre forward who can do a job and hold the ball up and do all this, that. And he was saying how this guy is tailor-made for English football. He would come in and be amazing for Arsenal, etc., etc. So when I heard we'd got linked with him, I thought, no chance. He's for Arsenal there. So touch wood, if he does sign, I think that's one, as you say, can drop straight in. And doing my research, it would appear he can play left and right of a 3 as well, comfortably, a bit like Cunha for Wolves used to. He's very good at holding the ball up. He's good at coming deep and whatnot. And he can score a goal. He hasn't got an amazing scoring record yet, but he is only coming into his peak as a player. The other 2, it's interesting because I've never heard of them. I can't claim I have. But again, I bow to Tim Vickery. The real star of the show seems to be the left-back, the one Brighton is trying to get, because he's very, very quick. So he could be the one. And the other centre-back, he's only 20. He's a long way off, I think.
We'll be right back after this. Botafogo are taking part in the Club World Cup, of course, and I had a look at the schedule for that, and just to go through their fixtures, they're playing against the Seattle Sounders in Seattle on Monday the 16th of June, kick-off 3 a.m. British summertime. They've then got a really difficult game against PSG in LA on Friday the 20th of June at 2 a.m. kick-off BST, and they round off the group stages with a game against Atletico Madrid also in LA Monday the 23rd of June at 8 p.m. BST. Now, if you are wanting to catch any of the games They are being broadcast on the streaming platform DAZN for free of charge, so no subscription is needed. And Channel 5 are also broadcasting selected games. So maybe that one against Atletico Madrid will be on Channel 5, 8 p.m, 23rd of June. So you will be able to catch the full game replays on DAZN if you're not prepared to stay up at 3 or 2 in the morning, which I am definitely not doing. So if you want to catch those three Brazilians, you can do so in the Club World Cup. TalkSport are also broadcasting live commentary, but again, if you're up at that time listening to TalkSport, you might as well turn the telly on and stream DAZN, which is available on all smart devices, including phones, iPads, and there is a TV app as well that you can watch it on. So you can check out all of the Club World Cup games there. Talking of Brazilians, they've also been linked with Douglas Luiz of Juventus, and I have to say he doesn't quite fit the model of a young up-and-coming player who they can sell on for a profit when he develops. He's a little bit older than that, but he's certainly got the pedigree, and I, for one, Chelsea would love him in the Forest team, wouldn't you?
I would, but I don't know whether he would come. It just seems a bit. I don't know whether it's a random one or not for me. I think, yeah, he'd be absolutely brilliant, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if again, I am that person where I'm just like, my gosh, it's like I block everything out until I know that it's concrete. So I'm absolutely rubbish in any of this conversation at the minute, but I really am. But yeah, I don't know whether he would come or not. I'm just like,
well, you know what, Chelsea, if there was something that would persuade him to head to the City ground, you only have to look at the likes of Murillo, Carlos Miguel, Danilo, the three aforementioned brilliants we've just talked about. If he they can easily have a word with his ear, can't they, and sell the club to him. And if he really gets sold on that idea, then he's going to come, isn't he? If indeed he was available, and if indeed the club do want him. But he'd certainly be an asset to that attacking formation, wouldn't he, Mollo?
I think if you go back 2 years when Villa qualified for the Champions League, I can remember playing them and saying that's the best midfield in the league at the moment in terms of how they played that season, and he was a massive part of that. He's the number 6 we've been craving, isn't he, for however many years? You know, granted, we've seen half a game now from Sangari where he looked at absolute business, but Douglas Luiz has done it for a couple of seasons. I don't know how he got on abroad, and I don't know if he's been picking up injuries, because, you know, that can have an impact on if we could get hold of him. But a fit Douglas Luiz, I rate as one of the best in his position in the Premier League when he was playing there last time. So it's a massive yes for me if that ever became possible.
Time will tell on that one. Right, there have been rumours of player outgoings, though, one of which is Matt Turner to Lyon for £6.7 million. And I can see you're punching the air, Chelsea. I mean, whoever negotiated that deal needs a knighthood, don't they, Chelsea? I mean, let's just say he's not exactly set the world alight when he's played for Forest, and to get that amount of money, albeit it is a slight loss, but he's clearly, they've got some alliance going with Lyon, haven't they, and John Textor. But if they're willing to do it, then who are we to argue?
one thing that I did hear was, were Lyon after Danilo as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, was it for 30 million? Was it? Did I?
Yeah,
20.
Yeah.
Well, I had a conversation with Dad. I was like, if they want Danilo for 20 million, perfect. If they want Danilo and they want Turner, do it for 15. It's just...
It's like buy Danilo and get a Turner for free.
Literally.
Hang on. Right. I'm going to get in Turner's corner here, because he didn't have... His kicking wasn't great, but he didn't have a specific weakness, did he? He would make world-class saves, come and take crosses, come off his line. He just found new ways to concede goals every other game. He could drop a cross, he could let a shot in at the near post, he could let a shot... I don't know how you do this. You used to play cricket as a youngster, Simon, I remember. If you make a long barrier, the ball cannot go through your legs, but he managed to achieve that. However, let's learn our lesson from Niakate. As we said earlier, Niakate left Forest, let's be honest, a bit of a clumsy donkey. I saw him the other night, peak Maldini. So he could come back as peak Dino Zoff in 2 years' time. It's not unheard of. He's got the talent. We could, but in all seriousness, I think I know he's very, very highly rated at Arsenal, but it just didn't work out for him. He just made one clanger too many, and it's psychological. He's not that bad a keeper. He's going to let the ball through his legs every other game. He just psychologically made a couple of errors, and then he lost it, didn't he? He was probably trying too hard. It all goes wrong, and he needed a fresh start. So let's hope that fresh start's Leon, and we see the future Dino's off.
I think sorry.
Go on, Chels.
I think it's personal for me, Mollo. He's gave me too much stress over that season that I cannot forgive him for. Leon, take him.
Yeah, Mollo, you're showing your age because Chelsea's probably wondering who the hell is Dino's off. Yeah,
well, I just wonder.
Your dad will know, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Ask your dad. But
one of a line of those great Italian goalkeepers, which has continued to this day.
You say he finds new ways of coming off his line, Mollo, but that reminds me of the game at Anfield where I saw the goal he let in a few seasons back when Salah put the ball in, and he certainly found a new way to come off his line that day, didn't he? And I guess you were there then, and weren't you?
Well, what I'm saying is he finds new ways to concede goals. You know, certain goalkeepers. You remember Pantilimon? He wasn't the best keeper we've ever had, but you knew he had a weakness, shots down low. And for a big guy, he wasn't great on crosses. But with Matt Turner, he didn't have one weakness. He could just find any way you like to concede a goal. Long shots, short shots, gap in his armour with a long barrier, drop across, come bombing off his line at Anfield and stop. You know, it just didn't work for him at Forest. And I feel for the guy because he's such a humble guy for an American. And but £10 million, you expect a ready-made... Goalkeepers don't cost that much generally, do they? And for £10 million, you expect a ready-made Premier League ready goalkeeper. Like Chels, who's only £5 million.
Yeah, for all his faults, though, at least he's not Arto Muric. We won't go there. Right, we did mention about Danilo, didn't we, Chels? Rumoured to be joining or going to Leon, or Besiktas from Turkey have also expressed an interest. Again, nothing official yet. 20 million, you said you'd sell him for that minus 5 for Matt Turner. But in all seriousness, given the injury to Dominguez as well, selling Danilo would leave a hole in the field. So would you, for now, keep... Oh, the rumours are that Danilo didn't want to sign for Lyon because there was a subsequent clause in his contract that would allow them to forward him to Botafogo as part of the deal, and he doesn't want to play for them. He only wants to play for Palmeiras in Brazil. So the stories are that he said no to that particular move, but... Which is great. I mean, I like Danilo. Yeah, he didn't have his greatest season last season, and probably the injury was a big factor in that. But would you keep him on, Chelsea?
Yeah.
Or would you
Sorry, that was like all new information for me. It was like I was watching the podcast instead of being honest. Sorry.
We're live, folks.
But yeah, I think with Danilo, I really expected good things from him this season. I really did. Got his injury that he had. Oh, bless his heart. You can tell that knocked him for six. And even when he came back, it was like he was made of glass, bless him. You could just tell he was scared on there. And why would you not be after breaking your ankle? I think if he hadn't have had that injury, I think he would have been absolutely fine. I think he was still playing like the Forest the season before, and I don't think he adapted himself into the team. And we did change a lot this season. Look where we finished. Everything about it changed. The structure, the way that we played, everything. And I don't think he caught up with that. My fear is that if we do keep him, he's still not going to be able to catch up to that level. If we sold him, would I be disappointed? Slightly, but I would also understand as well. But again, we just still need to replace him and just get that midfield stronger.
One of the more concerning stories I've read over recent days is the Elanga rumours aren't disappearing at the minute, and so obviously he got linked to Newcastle, and there has been another story of Arsenal again showing an interest. But the latest I've read is that apparently there was a private helicopter that took off from Newcastle and that landed 15 minutes from the Forest training ground a couple of days ago. What are your thoughts, Mollo? For me, he's a must keep. He's certainly one of the most important attacking players in that Forest team. To lose him would be a massive blow, unless of course they can sign an adequate replacement almost immediately. But Elanga, for me, Mollo, is certainly one to keep, and there's no way I would want to sell him.
100%. And the lad's only 22, I believe, isn't he? So my issue with Elanga, if that was to transpire, is we bought him as a little bit of a rough diamond with potential. His improvement hasn't been completely smooth. It's like it never is. It's been a bit up and down, but he has reached a level this season where I wouldn't swap him for hardly any other wingers in the league. Obviously, Saka is one, but to replace him at the level he's now at would cost a lot of money. And I've seen some of the players who've been linked at, and they've got great potential, but they've got to then go through that improving process that Alanga's gone through. And Alanga's attitude is absolutely superb. And that's what's made him so good, is he works at his game. He's worked on his weaker foot consistently. He works trying to be even faster and more powerful. He's kind of the Ryan Yates of the sort of wing world, isn't he? He just wants to get better every day. And we're reaping the benefits. And I want us to continue to reap the benefits. If he goes, I can see why Newcastle want him. Although, weirdly, Murphy's got better figures than Alanga. Better stats this season, which I was really surprised at. Yeah, I was quite surprised at. But I just think the way we play, he's crucial to. And as you rightly said, Simon, to replace him would be so hard. And it'd be potential. I haven't seen us linked with anyone when I think, that'd work. That's brilliant. Maybe Jono coming back. I can't see that now. He's got Champions League football. We just can't lose him. Whereas with Danilo, I love Danilo. I think Danilo, this time last year, I thought he was the jewel in our crown, that he could develop and become possibly a bit like a Makelele, because he's got everything in his armour. But what's changed is a horrible, horrible injury that you wouldn't wish on anyone. His first game back, him and Gibbs-White ripped Brighton apart, if you remember. They were fantastic. But he's tentative going into tackles, which he can't be. My view, and it's hard, should we cash in because we're not sure he'll get to the levels we know he has been and can be? Or do we give him a pre-season to get himself back fully fit? Because that's crucial, and see how he starts next season. But the danger there is he might not ever be the same player again. Thinking back to the England game, if we think of a player who had a bad injury and was never the same again, Neil Webb, the best, in my opinion, the best Forest player, centre midfielder ever to wear the Garibaldi, certainly in my lifetime. He got that awful injury against Sweden for England and was never quite the same player. And that's not disrespectful, what an awful injury. And he was such a good player. I think people forget how good he was. And I'm worried that Danilo, is he going to come back? Because he wasn't actually out that long considering the injury either, which is a bit strange.
Yeah, Neil Webb. You're probably wondering, Chelsea, who's Neil Webb? Not quite the same era as Dino Zoff, mind. He was kind of the player that Mollo and I grew up watching in the mid to late 80s, wasn't it? When he was at his peak, and my favourite memory of Neil Webb was scoring at Wembley in the Littlewoods Cup final. But on that note, actually, must give out a nod to the Forest players, including Neil Webb, who received their legacy caps at the City Ground the other night prior to the game, and that's the likes of Trevor Francis, Ian Storey-Moore, of course, Larry Lloyd, Gary Birtle, Steve Stone, Steve Hodge, and Colin Cooper, amongst others. Neil Webb, of course, was the 1,000th player to represent England, and he scored on that day as well. He scored, I believe.
West Germany.
Yeah. But continuing the conversation now around transfer rumours, as you pointed out in our group chat, Mollo, there's a lot of noise going on at the minute around players being linked away from the City Ground, which is a natural thing to happen when you've had a successful team and a successful season. Talking about the likes of Nico Williams, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Olarena, and to a lesser extent, Roman Sosa and Jota Silva. Where do you stand on all of those? So they've all been linked with various teams. I know, Chelsea, you don't follow those particular rumours necessarily, but
stressing.
Clearly, you want to keep your best players.
Yeah, I think A, you want to keep your best players. B, we're in a scenario next year where we're going to be travelling almost certainly all over, particularly Eastern Europe and very southern Europe, Northern Europe. Not so much the west side of Europe where you can be back in the early hours of the next day after a game. It's going to be a case of stopovers or sleep as you fly, getting back the next day and miss a day's training. I don't know how they'll carry it out. But for me, we do need a bigger squad. Not just because we've got more games. We had a sensational season built partly on the fact that we had consistency. We had the second least injuries in the league in terms of number of days and players missed. My friend who's a Tottenham fan was very upset when he found out Tottenham weren't the top of the injuries. Of course, they are in their heads. It was actually Brighton, believe it or not, had the most days out of injury, still finished 8th. So we're not likely to be that fortunate again.
Yeah.
Having talked about Danilo, what if we lose a Murillo or a Milenkovic, or probably at the moment, without signings, our biggest loss would probably be Matt Tells, wouldn't it, after just going back to the Turner chat? For me, we need a bigger squad. If we lose a couple of those fringe players for reasonable money, because I think there's a place for Jota, especially with the competition we're in. I think he's a decent player. I don't think we've yet seen the best of him. I think when he's played in that number 10 role, which means we could rest Gibbs-White if it was a far-flung journey that we don't need to play him in, he's done really well. The 2 games I remember him playing 10 in, Newcastle in the Cup, when Newcastle went full strength, and it's the closest they got to not winning it last season when they went on to win it. And Villa, the second half, he came on and turned the game. So Jota's a much better player than people realise, but he's not a winger. Sosa's one that I worry about because... has he got the physicality? He's got the mentality because he wants to stay, to be fair. He reminds me of a poor man's Chris Waddle. Now, if he could become like Chris Waddle, that would be a heck of a player. Yeah. Or an Ian Woan, should we say, to bring it a bit more modern for Chelsea. Yeah. We need more players, not less. And if you look at the 3 Brazilians, the left back is effectively a direct replacement for the legend that is Toffolo, who we must acknowledge, possibly the nicest, most humble guy I've ever come across in terms of a Forest shirt in the last few years. The centre-back sounds like he's one for the future, clearly not ready. Tim Vickery described him as gangly, awkward, not a bit ungainly, and not very good in the air. And I'm thinking, have we signed Carl Tyler again? I don't know.
Sounds like you were signing me.
Yeah. But what I will say, our players being linked with moves away is something that we as Forest fans have got to adjust our bar slightly. Back in the Championship days, it was uproar. Oh, Matty Cash can't go for less than 20 million. We've got to accept that being successful, clubs all over Europe are going to cover our players. And it's a case of we're not a selling club anymore. We can sell on our terms mostly. And if they're linked with other clubs, so be it. That means they're doing something right. Come August, when we start the season, that squad needs to be bigger, not smaller.
You mentioned Toffolo there, Mollo. Obviously, Forest have announced their retained list for the forthcoming season, and Toffolo's being released after 3 years at the club. Willy Bolly's been offered a new deal. Discussions are ongoing with Wayne Hennessy, and Alex Moreno's returned to Aston Villa. I think you hit the nail on the head there around Toffolo. He's been an ultimate professional, an ultimate person at the Forest since he's been there, being certainly an advocate for mental health. Chelsea, it'll be a sad loss. But would you have offered him a new deal? Obviously, there's nothing we can do now, but he's the sort of player that you would want at your football club.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, more so he's not a bad player at all, but more so for the community aspect and what he'd done and the togetherness and, like you said, his awareness for mental health, absolutely outstanding. I mean, when I forget which game that he played, where he done the clearance off the line, the Tottenham game. Yeah. Oh, bless him, after that game, I remember when he was in the interview, he said, I'm knackered. He said, I'm knackered. So for him, I don't think, he would be able to keep up with the pace, bless him. So I'm not surprised that he is going. A big loss for the community and a big loss for our club. But for him, I don't think he would have been able to keep up to the standards and the stamina that we are going to have, especially with if we go into Europe and things like that. So, yeah, I do think that was the right decision for him and for us as well.
And he leaves on a high, very much so, doesn't
Definitely.
he? I remember Mollo, the highlight, what I remember in terms of how Forest fans regard Harry Toffolo was at the end of the Burnley game the season before last. There was and I know you were there with Ellie, because I remember seeing you on social media, like bang in the middle of the fans at the end when the players were receiving their Player of the Year trophies and stuff like that. And I know the fans were singing Harry Toffolo's song, and he looked quite embarrassed by it, that he was being pushed forward by his teammates. But that shows just how humble he is, but also what Forest fans think of him.
100%. I think what you've got to say about Harry Toffolo, he's never let us down. I feel awful saying this because he's probably one of the Forest players I've liked the most in the last 10 years. But he's never let us down, and he's also just not quite the level we want to be at now. But what you've got to say, we could have offered him a year, but I hope he gets 3-4 years somewhere else at a Championship or a lower Prem or a promoted team, because he deserves a long contract somewhere.
Right, we're going to talk about the Europa League right after this. Right, so the latest stories on Crystal Palace, guys. They obviously there is a concern that they do not meet ownership rules, so they could be removed from the Europa League and even actually removed from the Conference 2 due to those same rules. Latest I've read is that according to a TalkSport report, they are likely to be remaining in the Europa League. I mean, personally, I think that on the one hand, it is the right decision because the players have earned it. The fans would be absolutely devastated if they miss out. And as a football club, they absolutely have earned the right to be in the Europa Conference League. So I would have no problems whatsoever with them remaining in it. And also, apparently, the New York Jets owner, the American football team, Woody Johnson, I think his name is, he is rumoured to be buying John Textor's shares, is the latest I've heard. And if that is the case, again, apparently UEFA have said they will allow them to compete. However, rules are rules. And if it meant that Forest were elevated to the Europa Conference instead, then I would accept that given the higher level of prize money involved and the guarantee of 8 games as opposed to a playoff. Where do you guys stand on this whole Crystal Palace and Europa League thing? Start with you, Mollo, first.
I'll echo everything you said completely. It's an admin situation. They haven't cheated. They haven't overspent, which we were accused of doing with the ridiculous rules. Everything you said there, Simon, is spot on. You forgot to say when TalkSport announced that they're going to be in the conference, they're still going to be in the Europa League, that when they first said it on the news, I happened to be listening, spent too much time in my car, they said, despite the best efforts of Nottingham Forest, I've lost so much respect. What little respect I had, I've lost for TalkSport these last few days. Darren Bent, someone I really like as a pundit, calling snitchers, grassers. Are they idiots? Who's read the letter? I think it's poor optics by Forest sending a letter at that point. However, it's idiotic the way it's been reported. Palace should be in there from a very selfish point of view. I agree with you about the better competition, but also far easier journeys for the away games. Eurostar as opposed to whatever Romania Airlines and Kazakhstan Express or whatever. In reality, they absolutely deserve to be there. This is the team that have never played in Europe because the last time they qualified, UEFA changed the rules themselves. I don't know if you're aware of this. So after the English teams had done their 5-year ban, a certain other team was supposed to get an extra year on top. And Palace finished 3rd in the league that year with Wright and Bright up front, a wonderful team they had back then. But UEFA changed their rules at the last second to allow Liverpool to go in after all and drop Palace out of it. And now it's almost could happen to them again. It's wrong. What I don't like is I think Forest fans and Palace fans, and as two clubs, got a lot in common. You know, whenever we've gone there and whenever you see the online stuff, there's quite a lot of, I would say, camaraderie, but respect between the clubs. And because of the way it's been reported and the optics of sending a letter, it seems to have blown out of the water just like that. It's awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, I think Palace fans are taking it out on social media on Forest fans because that's the only outlet they have in order to be heard, I think. So it'll all blow over, and the decision is expected imminently, I believe, and whatever ends up, Forest are still going to be in Europe, and if it's the Conference League, arguably they're going to have a better chance of winning that anyway, you would have thought. But Chels, Conference League or Europa League, where do you
Oh, I just can't help but think that if that was Forest and that happened to us, that would have gone against us. And I think that's where Maranaka stands with it all. It's just, and like Palace excuse was, we didn't think that we would win it. Well, sorry, but in my mind, I'm like, you should have thought of that, and you should have covered yourself. And I do see that's that bitter bit about me where we've had everything go against us. I'm like, no, ban them. There's that bitterness Forest fan in me, but I'll try and let it slide. Yeah, I do.
Just this once.
Yeah, just this once. I mean, good on Palace for doing it. It's amazing to see that they are in there, but in a way, that part of me, rules are rules. And if it was for,
I think in their defence, wasn't just one thing, was it? Because Bromby always win their league, and Lyon were nowhere and had a big run at the end of the season to get into that last spot. So three things combined together, which you should prepare for but don't expect. So I'll give them their dues. But to echo what you said there, Chelsea, and being a youngster, you probably don't even remember this, but you're absolutely right about UEFA, because I'm still extremely bitter about 1984. I want to play Anderlecht away.
Oh yeah, I do, big time. I want to play Anderlecht and beat them
so much. I want to play there, beat them, and give them 90 minutes of dogs abuse from the terraces about your owners a cheat or whatever, and you bought the referee, because I'll never forget that.
I did hear the story from my dad. I was like, "You sit down, and I'm going to tell you a story."
Oh, talking of stories, I've got my own story about that game. So me, my dad and my brother went to the first leg of that Anderlecht tie at the City Ground, was dead in line with those two Steve Hodge headers. One of the best nights I can ever remember as a youngster at the City Ground, with two late goals to take a great lead into the second leg. On the evening of the second leg, because I was only a kid, I was naughty, and I got sent to bed. The game wasn't on TV back then. However, I wasn't even allowed to listen to it on the radio. However, I did sneak the radio on when I was in bed, and I heard the Paul Hart goal get disallowed, not knowing the score at the time, and obviously realising that it meant Forest exited the competition, and that's my overriding memory of that second leg. Losing it 3-0, I was absolutely devastated.
Have you ever seen the penalty they gave against Kenny Swain?
Yeah, ridiculous.
There's a gap like more than I can show on this screen between him and the ball, him and the player. It was unbelievable. But so we owe them, and you're right, Chelsea. If the shoe was on the other foot, it wouldn't surprise me if we got kicked out and relegated.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, talking of fixtures, the 2025-2026 season fixtures drop on June the 18th at 9 a.m. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. Now, we'll obviously have a fixture release podcast coming out shortly after those fixtures are released. But for now, we're going to have a little game, aren't we? Each of us are going to predict the first game of the season, the Boxing Day fixture, and who they're going to finish up the season against. So I'll let you go first, Chels. Who do you think Forest are going to play first up?
See, I did have a little think about this, and I'm going to go with Liverpool away. I think the first game of the season at Anfield, I think after what happened, they'll go, right, start them off with a bang. Thought that'd be quite a nice meaty game for the first one. The next one, end of the season game, I reckon we're going to get an away game, and I don't know. I reckon we won't have Chelsea again. Mollo, you go with your. You go with your.
Okay.
Let me have a think.
It's got to be Palace away first game after all this, isn't it? You just know it. It won't be quite as friendly as not. Well, I'm sure it will, but you just know it'll be Palace away. And then whoever's the furthest away will get at 12 o'clock on Boxing Day.
Yeah, I was going to say who your Boxing Day predictions. Well, you have a think. I'm going to go my Boxing Day Everton away as my Boxing Day fixture at their new stadium.
Yeah.
And just to complete the roundup, I'm going for Tottenham away as my first game of the season. Only because we seem to flick between decent teams at the beginning of the season. Now, we've had Newcastle, we've had Arsenal, both away. I'm going to continue that trend and have Spurs away.
You said decent teams. They finished 17th.
Yeah, decent in inverted commas. And then my last game of the season, I'm going for Wolves at home.
Ooh.
So we need your
Leeds home.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Leeds at home last game.
Can you imagine how messy that will be if Forest win to send Leeds back down again?
But do you know what? That's how I was going through my head. Don't want to not sound arrogant at all, but that's what I was thinking in my head. Yeah. But Boxing Day, I'll go with Newcastle at home.
Cool. Right. That brings us pretty much to the end of this week's show. Guys, any other business? Start with you, Chels.
No other business for me.
Mollo.
Just a mention for Willy Bolly. I think perfect to give him a 1-year contract. Unlike Toffolo, who's in his prime and needs to be getting a 3 or 4 year contract somewhere, it's perfect for Bolly. He knows he's kind of 4th or 5th choice centre back, and he does that role brilliantly and has never let us down. So well done to him.
Yeah,
good move by the club.
Yeah, the only thing I would want to mention is that they've today, at the time of recording, they've started to release next season's merchandise with the release of these new Samba trainers, which have just been put on social media. They are white with red Adidas stripes, a red toe clip, and they are priced at, have a guess how much they're being priced at, guys?
£100.
£95.
It's not bad.
I know.
When do they go online?
Yeah, I don't know. They're available now, no restock. So once they're gone, they're gone.
I am literally adding them to my basket now.
Same.
Right. There you go, hot off the press.
We're all going to have the matching trainers.
Yeah.
I love an Adidas trainer,
Me too.
Right, there you go, live shopping on Tricky Talk.
Desperate.
On that note, guys, thanks very much for joining us this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and a review on your podcast catcher of choice. We enjoy it when you say nice things about us, and of course it means that we can reach more Forest fans, which we like to see. So it's goodbye from us, and we will talk to you again real soon.